All right, we are now live and welcome to Impromptu. This is my husband Clifton Sawyer. I'm Tony Sawyer, and this is my co-host Norman Armstrong
Yes,
in
yes.
North Corner,
Hello,
South
hello, everybody.
Carolina. We
Hello to
are now,
everybody.
yeah. It's good to be in the land of the living, as they
Mm,
say.
yes.
Yes, and of course, our impromptu is always about navigating through change, living in an atmosphere of change, and making our way through. And we started this during the pandemic, actually. This show, and my intent was to just bring out some conversation about different things. So that's what this show is about. It's about conversation, and I wanted to start off. This isn't so much a spiritual this isn't spiritual content that I'm about to start off with, but I was thinking about our this new generation, the current present generation versus the baby boomer generation, which is where we live, and your generation after us, which
I'm
would be
I'm
what
the,
the
I'm the latter part of the baby boomers.
yeah, you are. You're a generation X, I think. But anyway, we're the baby boomers, and this new generation. And when I say new generation, I don't want to categorize people, but these are some of the things that I've been noticing that is happening. And I just wanted to list a few of the things that I have noticed. First of all, not many believe in God. That's more of a trend now. A lot of them don't believe in God, or they're agnostic. They don't know if God exists or not. They're not really atheist. They just don't know, and and don't really follow the same belief patterns that my generation follow. Because everybody in my generation, you better believe in God. All of us believed in God. Something wrong with you if you didn't believe in God.
Hmm.
So it's totally different now. And then the belief in religions. They don't believe in a lot of religions because they think religion causes problems. Um, they're likely to support same-sex marriage, which a lot of my generation are totally freaked out by that. Uh, they're more open-minded than their parents on controversial topics. They have an internet addiction, yet they're highly connected due to the use of those kinds of media technologies. They're more diverse than any other generation because there's so many mixed children coming into this world. They're blending. So the races have started to blend. And I think some races are afraid of that because it's like they're disappearing. Um, and I won't even get into that part because we could get into racial stuff immediately and that'd be terrible. But they have positive feelings about mixed cultures, uh, more social circles that include people from different ethnic groups, races, and religions. They believe less in the American dream. And since the pandemic, I think it's even more so now that they don't believe in the American dream because we've seen so many changes and conflicts. They feel unsafe, and that's basically due to all of the different things that are happening in our world. We've
Hmm.
got we've got so many shootings, mass shootings, just all kinds of different things taking place. So they don't feel as safe as we did in our generation. And actually in my generation, you would work on a job until you retired. Most people
Hmm.
did. Nowadays, you don't even they don't even expect to retire from a job. So jobs are transient, and financial stability is more in the forefront of people's minds. The young ladies are getting sugar daddies. And and
The age
young
just started, Bob. The age just
and then
started.
it just started, but it's more prevalent now. And the young men are getting cougars. So I mean, they're making their way
Uh-huh.
by getting somebody to pay their way. So and then there's a lot of mistrust in the political system. Marriage is considered obsolete.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and there's the dating blues. They're all saying, "Oh, it's so terrible. It's not it's not it's not easy to date anymore." And then they're talking. There are more babies being born out of wedlock now because people are living together rather than being married.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a sense of independence. They're not being taught traditional manners. A lot of them don't know anything about how to conduct themselves in a setting of church. They may say or do something that's totally inappropriate because they're not familiar with it. And that includes funerals, weddings. Their demeanor is totally different because of that, and so they're just not being taught traditional manners. A lot of their parents are younger, so their parents aren't in church and teaching them or bringing them up in church, so they're just not being taught those things. And then um, the social media is shaping their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Is shaping their lives, and and I've noticed this about social media. People are addicted to social media.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and they feel like, and when you if you look at social media too much, you will end up depressed. And they said it's like a drug, and I heard someone talking about it. It's like a drug that they get so involved with it and their lives and other people's lives, and comparing their life to someone else's life, and then they end up depressed,
Mm-hmm.
and putting all of their business out, airing all of their dirty laundry in the public on the social media. These are just a few things I'm noticing, and I
Mm-hmm.
just wrote them down. But they're connected globally because they have all this access to all of this knowledge on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Everything can be Googled, good stuff and bad stuff, true stuff and false stuff. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
we have the conspiracy theorists that are now in the forefront, because that's what they've done. They've taken the internet and put all of the conspiracy theories out there, and some people really, really believe that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I could go on and on, but that I have a whole page of things that I've noticed that are taking place in this atmosphere that we're in now, and it is different for my husband and myself. We talk about this a lot. When his mom was living, and we had to take her to the grocery store, to the doctor, or whatever, and she noticed different things change, how people do different things, and she said, "I don't understand that." And and we've noticed that's happening with us now. Like when you go to a place and they got these what they call a kiosk, and
Yes.
you've got to put all this information in this thing, and you've got to do da. And it freaks us out sometimes. It freaks us out, whereas it's the norm for other people. So living in atmosphere change is different for everybody. It's a
Mm-hmm.
whole lot of changes happening for the two of us, just simply because of our age, and then that doesn't even include what's taking place in the environment. And so yeah, I just wanted to kind of mention that. Then I'm going to say hello to Sharon. Hey, Sharon, I just told Pastor we need to call you guys, see how you and Miss Essie are doing. And then there's Linda Langdon. Hey,
Yeah,
Linda.
good to see
Thank you
you.
guys for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
She said she finally got YouTube to work. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
cool, cool. Yeah, I see you're on YouTube. Social media is a drug for the ego, mostly. Yes, ma'am, it sure is. And so I just thought I'd bring that out, because when we talk about living in atmosphere of change, we're talking about a lot of conversations
Mm-hmm.
that we could have. But in your circles where you're living now, what do you see that's really, really changing, that is considered a permanent change from the norm?
Well, it's interesting that the list of things that you actually had mentioned, and we haven't really discussed a whole lot. That's why this is impromptu, but actually, that is what I've been doing as well. I've been noticing the shifts that has happened in our
Hmm.
society, and of
Hmm.
course, when we use the statement "the atmosphere of change," when we talk about atmosphere, we're talking about the pervading and prevailing tone or mood of a people in a
Yeah,
area
yeah,
or region. And
yeah.
so where I am, and it is kind of different in each region and territory. Of course, the mindset of those that is in the environment of city life versus rural living, it is kind of different. But
Hmm.
um, everything that you just mentioned from your list is something that I've noticed as well. And so when it comes to, um, I'll just use this for example, the culture of and what we are used to familiar with when it goes concerning going to church, so to speak.
Hmm.
Um, it has shifted. It has literally shifted, and I've had many discussions, even up to last night, concerning it. Right now, there is not a dominant trend, but the trend that is becoming more relevant is social media, doing everything virtually. And
Yeah.
so I've been having a conversation with a lot of individuals, and of course, my wife and I, we've been traveling for since the 14th of July, and so I've come in contact with a lot of interesting people. But the last time I was in a barbershop a couple of weeks ago, there was two young men that was there, and they asked me a question. Them knowing that I was a pastor, I was just being quiet, listening to everything they were
Mhm.
talking about. And the question that was presented was, "Why are there so many churches anyway? Why,
Okay. Good
why
question.
yeah, why?" And,
Good
and,
question.
and I chuckled when he asked the question. You know, why do everybody seem like they got to start a church rather than us just coming together?
Hmm.
And so, of course, I laughed and I began to elaborate further on that. And I was sharing with him the truth of the matter is actually we should be trying to come together and be unified. But because there are so many different ideologies and doctrines, I said, just for example, when we talk about the Christian faith, you have the Baptist, the Church of God in
Hmm.
Christ, the
Hmm.
Pentecostals, and the evangelicals, but all of them under the umbrella of Christianity.
And even in those groups, they are,
Subgroups, yeah.
yeah, they're broken down into other subgroups. And so, and it's like, it's it's like you, and one of the reasons, we talked about this before too, one of the reasons they can't get together, we can't get together, is because it's my sandbox, and this is my empire, this is my kingdom as the leader, and I don't want anything taken away from me.
Exactly.
And
And
so
that's
it's,
exactly what I share with him.
yeah,
The people that
yeah,
want to build kingdoms unto themselves and
yes,
stuff like that.
yes,
So I'm
yes.
king, I'm head honcho, and so you're not going to mess with this, and I'm not deterred from it.
And I noticed over the years that what separates churches is not the congregation, it's the leaders,
Hmm.
because the leaders are afraid of other leaders taking over or bringing in something that what they don't believe in. It's all of those kinds of things. It's a mixed bag, and so it's really not the people that's separating. It's the leadership that's
Hmm.
separating. And
Exactly.
unfortunately, I know, when we first came into church, really got into church, uh, we noticed there was a lot, especially in the prophetic churches, there was a lot of people that would say, God is going to give you the city. God is going to give you the city. Well, that sounds real good, but it's all egotistical, of course. And
Exactly.
and at that point, you have just been you excluded every other church, because you are now the head honcho if you
Exactly.
have the city. So that's the kind of mindset that I've noticed is in some of the pastors, specifically Black evangelical charismatic pastors. And I don't know about the white ones. I didn't spend a lot of time with them, but this is exactly what I noticed happened in a lot of cases. So it's all about building my own kingdom, and that's what keeps them separate, us separated. I
Mm-hmm.
remember it was really funny when we were in the brick and mortar. This is way back. We had a event, and we invited a pastor from the city to come in, and he was very well known. Uh, and he had some issues with my husband and the way he taught. So had him come in for the Bible school with doing some stuff, and he was going to speak. He was the keynote speaker. So he spoke, and the whole time he spoke, he was coming against everything that he knew about him.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it was so funny because my husband was so, I don't know what you call it. You were so free and completely removed from what he was saying, and never even thought it was about him. And shouted and praised God through
Well,
the
say
whole meeting.
amen.
And the minister got so frustrated because it was like it just went
What we
and
say?
and it never affected him, and we were laughing. Those of us who knew what he was doing, we were laughing because he was so frustrated. It didn't affect him my husband at all. Because
Mm-hmm.
he never knew through the whole sermon, he never knew that it was pointing at him. And it was
Exactly.
so funny. But I wish we all had that blind, I won't call it blind, that veil of love over our eyes so that we're not affected by when people are disagreeing with us or coming against us. And it was just grace.
Exactly.
He was completely shielded from it.
And that is so awesome that he was able. It was like one pastor that told me, one of my mentors said, you got to be like a duck with water on his back and just let
And
it
it was
roll.
like that.
And,
Yeah, it
You
was
see,
just like that.
that's
I
because he
wouldn't,
felt that
I
way.
wouldn't, I wasn't deliberately doing that.
No.
I didn't hear what he said.
Yep,
But
exactly.
you were listening to what he
I
said.
was listening to it, but I didn't hear what he said
Yep.
Right.
because it didn't bother me. I thought he did a good job,
He did a good job.
and
Yeah.
I wouldn't. If he's talking about me, it never struck me because I didn't know that at that moment I was being uh, incited into what we're into now
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
knowing the difference. I was locked in fully. I was fully conscious of my eternal, infinite, and I didn't. I just he just couldn't touch me. I was in a
It didn't
place that
touch you. It
it was
really
like the
didn't
three
touch
Hebrew
you.
kids in the furnace. It didn't bother me.
Yeah.
And then when he got
Yeah.
through, I invited him to come back. Now
Yeah.
normally I wouldn't have said, "You ain't coming back here." I remember a guy came to our church one time.
But now, yeah, he actually invited him back,
Yeah,
and
and
he left so frustrated because none of it even it didn't make a dent.
and his wife was there, and they had a very bad relationship, and
Mhm.
she got sick. She was sick, and he wouldn't even help her out the door.
That's how mad he was.
Yeah, that's what he was messed up. But he didn't mess me up because I didn't even hear what he said. I
Right,
didn't know who he was talking
right,
about.
right.
That is
Now,
funny.
now Linda says many churches like to think they are the chosen ones. They don't like the idea that everyone is special.
That's true.
That
Exactly.
that's exactly right.
That's
And
true.
that's and I tell you what too, Linda, when we came to the point of wanting to include everybody, of wanting not to exclude people because they didn't fit in our mold, that's when our congregation started to dwindle down
Mm-hmm.
because there's a philosophy in the church, particularly in the evangelical charismatic churches, that you must take a stand, and if you don't take a stand, you're compromising. And
Exactly.
so when we dropped the judgments and suspended all of and stopped trying to be the policeman for God and the Holy Spirit to people for them and trying to make them live in a certain lifestyle, that's when people started to think we were compromising, and they didn't like that. And some of them just they it was called, I call it the Exodus, but it was like they inched out a little bit at a time, just a little bit
Mhm.
at a time, because
And
they couldn't take the freedom,
exactly,
they couldn't take the liberty of including everybody.
exactly. But that's the same thing that happened to Jesus. The exact same thing. He had a larger group of people, according to the word of the disciple, and then it started dwindling down,
Yeah.
especially
Hmm.
when familiarity has set in and so
Hmm.
forth. But in y'all sharing with that experience, you also gave the answer to why this generation now does not really embrace what we used to embrace,
Okay.
because they have a lot of different questions. And when you outside looking in, and again
Hmm.
I use the umbrella of Christianity, their question is, why is there so many different denominations, subgroups of this group and that group, and so forth and so on under one? And so there is so much division. There is so much of of different preachers that's using their platform to attack another preacher, like y'all were just sharing.
Yeah.
They are
Yeah.
very in tune and very aware of that.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
And so they're kind of wondering why there's really no difference if I'm experiencing this outside of the culture of the church, and then I join it, it's the same old thing. So what
Same
is
thing.
the actual difference? And there
Yeah.
is no difference. We just put it all under the umbrella of religion.
Yes, we had the opportunity yesterday of ministering to a young lady for about 2 hours, actually, on a Zoom, who was a pastor's kid, PK, um, had been verbally abused and even physically abused
Oh, terrible.
by her mother,
They
to
can
the
fight, fist
to
fights.
the point that she was literally psychologically damaged with PTSD.
Wow.
Uh,
Yes,
that's
it was
how
bad.
judgmental
And she,
her
oh
her
Lord,
her life was, her relationship was with her mother. I'm hoping that she's not listening. If she's not, I'm not going to call
boy,
any
they won't
names.
know who she
I'm
is
not
because
going
we're
to call
not
any
calling
names.
names.
But
Right.
we witnessed a young lady who literally was at the point of tears because of the verbal abuse that she received growing up in that house.
She was wrecked. Her image, the image of her ego,
Hmm.
was believed everything that the mother said,
Yes.
and we had to bring her into the nurturization of bottled awareness as a baby, to bring her in to touch on the fact that, in spite of all that was said to her to destroy what was really not her,
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
um, there I need to stop it. There is something that's getting ready to be adjusted about some kind of car payment for you. I hear it coming toward us and to you. We don't have a car
We don't
payment,
have a car payment.
but there's something about a payment on something that has to do with transportation. Hold on, that's coming to you or somebody that's online. It's about Gwen's car. It's about her car, y'all's car rather, and it also has something to do with about insurance. It has something to do with numbers. And I'm sitting here and I'm hearing this old rhyme going off inside of me. He said, "Here's what it sounded like. This old man, he played one. He played knick-knack with his thumb, with a knick-knack, pallywhack, give a dog a bone. This old man came rolling home, or running home.
Rolling home.
And I feel the presence. I hear the Lord, the Spirit, talking to you in rhymes and riddles.
Mhm.
And he's unlocking some things inside. He's also saying something about brick and mortar and building. He said, don't look for it, let it reveal itself to you. He said, don't go after it, it will go after you. Because he said, these bricks and mortar that you are getting was looking for, these structures are speaking and prophesying to the earth and telling the earth it has to have you in it, around it, or on it.
Okay.
There's a superstructure that's been built in you that will automatically hasten the bricks to cry out like the stones of the earth.
Mhm.
And he said, the cedars of Lebanon are ready for you. What would it be if I was to reveal to you to build your own superstructure?
Mhm. Mhm.
Building at a time like this seems like it's so far the distance. But he said, I have no distance when it comes down to what I'm doing on a superstructure built based on the grace of God. Now, he said, excuse me, he said, you don't have to keep your ears or eyes open. He said, you don't have to keep your ears out open in your ego or your physical autonomy. It will be the eyes and the ears of God inside you. I see two big ears on the side of your head, look like Oral Roberts ears, like Indians. And they are the ears of God that are listening to the stones and the concrete. I don't understand this, but I sense it. Did he get that? They go, this so man, he played seven. He, this is something he's telling me. He looked forward to going to heaven with a knick-knack paddywhack. Give a dog a bone. This old man came.
Wow.
Rolling home.
And he keeps saying, home. He said, home in on your blueprints. On your blueprints, he said, your wife is going to have to go to the doctor.
She's on. She's on.
I know she is. I see her name. I didn't see it till I opened my eyes. She's going to have to go for a visit to a gynecologist or whatever. She gonna have to go because there's some thing that's going on inside of her that has to be looked at. I don't know what she think about this now, but it don't matter whether she hear it or not. It's gonna have to be. She's gonna have to go. I hear this presence of God zeroing in not only on you but others online, and there is something about the miracle presence of grace in a moment like it is with all this going on and prices going up. God has not put a price on what he has for you. That price that is on the world is not the same price that's on you. That's what he's saying. That's I'm talking about everybody that's listening to us today. God's price is not the world's price.
Exactly.
Exactly. Exactly. Is a different economy.
Oh man, I feel that.
That's
Ooh,
good.
I feel like
That's good.
Yep.
That's good.
And that's good that I can speak now with the thing with the cars, and we actually got more than one car. Maybe there's going to be some. I don't know. Maybe the company's gonna call us that we pay on our card. Maybe we gonna pay less. I don't know.
I don't know, but I sense that something working. Now I'm going to tell you this right here, and this is about change.
Okay.
Mhm.
I just recently, the day to present, investigated minutely into the nail scars on Jesus' hands, and some people call them the stigmata.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm, mhm.
These nail prints in his hands and on his head is also on us because we were inside of him
Mm-hmm.
as mystics.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
During the time we were inside of him, these marks were burned and seared into the gray matter of our brain. They are doors to dimensions. I heard it said that one pastor was in his office, and because of this that I speak, he could put his hand down to the top of a table.
Mm-hmm.
The scars in his feet is an indication that you have an opening to walk through dimensions and change them and move them around like puzzles and chess on a board.
Mhm,
That's the mystics.
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
The, the thorn prints around his head is the mystical side of the mind, the top of the head opening up, and you seeing into the realms of the most suspicious technology of the dark world and being able to capture the root cause of what it is doing to damage and stop people from being able to see God.
Mm-hmm.
The feet are walking based on the size shoe that Jesus had. Your feet will fit in any shoe that He's designed for you to walk in.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And there's more to it because I see all this going on, and I looked into this, and the enlightenment. If you ever see Jesus' eyes, you will see your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
If your eyes are brown, He is your brown eyes. If it's blue, whichever it was. Now he said this. He said, "Tell them that those who have had the abusiveness in their families, kind of like drugs and alcohol." He said he said something about his eyes cannot be his eyes cannot stop discerning because of drugs blocking it. Something like that he said. And these eyes and ears are open to hear. You're going to begin to hear the inner nudging of the intuition of your infinite self begin to reveal to you the mystical side of seeing in the spirit world. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to be so easy
Mhm,
Mm-hmm.
because it is now. It's something he said.
mhm.
We were talking about. She was talking about people coming together. You said we need to get together. It won't happen.
It won't. Not
It
as
never.
long as
Here's
there's
what
an
he
ego.
said:
No.
"For there must also be heresies among you, that they which are approved may be made manifest among you." The the ego world is never will never ever come
See
together.
eye to eye. They can't
They
see
won't
eye
see
to
eye to
eye.
eye. But
Mm-mm.
you will notice. He said also that the smell of a lot of you out there, God is going to use your smell, your sense of smell, to pick up directions. He said you're also going to be able to touch things and be able to understand the history behind that thing that's in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm done. Go
No,
ahead.
that's good. That's
Mhm.
good. Actually, I was looking at a particular scripture in 2 Timothy 2:13, and it's one of my favorite passages. It says, "If we believe not, yet he abides faithful. He cannot deny himself."
Mm-hmm.
That says to me that we can rest and have absolute trust that and expect that everything that is good for me and you will and can happen.
That's the addendum on what I just said.
Yes, it is. You can rest and absolutely trust
Mm-hmm.
that anything that is good for you can and will happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it has nothing to do with our faith.
Exactly.
Nothing to do. It says if we do not believe, yet he abides faithful. He cannot deny himself. And the self that he's talking about is the self that you are.
Exactly.
I was looking at, and this is, I don't know why I'm reading this, but there was a young man who was attending our fellowship before the pandemic hit. He was a twin to one of the young ladies that came to our fellowship. His name was Chris Corney. He's now passed, and he was battling cancer. He had it and went into remission, and then it came back. And this is the last time he came to our fellowship. These are the things he said to us. He said, "Tell my people to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Accept who you are, God in the flesh."
Mm-hmm.
That's what he said. And he said, Peter forgot the laws that bound him. When he remembered these laws, he began to sink.
Yeah.
And he said, there's a place in God where you don't have to ask.
Exactly.
And then he said, forget the laws that bind you. We are already greater than the beyond. Pray and expect. Expect God to move in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Then he says, don't use your energy to hate. Walk in love. And he said some other things, but that was his last message to us. That
Wow.
accept who you are, God in the flesh.
Exactly. And it's funny that you said that, because most of what we are accepting is what man is presenting,
Mhm.
and that is the false identity which is keeping us separated
Yeah.
from all the things that we can experience if we would just walk into the awakening, into the place of us knowing who we really are. And
Mhm.
so that is amazing to even hear him make that statement.
Yes, yes,
But
yes.
I wanted to elaborate on going back to what you was talking about concerning all the it's a conflict between generations and so forth. And it's because people are being so closed-minded. They're not being open-minded to the possibilities that are truly out there. There
Mhm.
is more, not just to this world, but there's more to us than meets the eye.
Mhm.
And so it's like people, the fear that people have is the fear of the unknown.
Yes.
They get stuck with what they know or what they have encountered and experienced, as if there is no more to experience or no more to encounter, and so forth. And so I think that's one of the things that is happening, that's causing the divide in the midst of the generations right now. And it's because of people that have been so used of one culture or one mode of things. They're not open to trying something different. And I
Mhm.
found myself, I mean, when you mentioned about social media, and I shared that before, that the generation, the younger ones up under me, at our church, they for years been trying to push me onto social media. They
Mhm.
wanted me to have a podcast, all those different things, and I was like, yeah, 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 yeah. And then when the pandemic happened, guess what?
Now you had to.
I had to. And,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so again, it reminds me of the parable in Luke chapter 5, even at verse 36, when Jesus said, there's no man that take a new garment and attach it to an old piece of garment,
Mhm.
because it would cause a rent, because they
Yeah.
don't agree with
Yes.
one another, and
Yes.
so forth. And of course, you can't put new wine in old wine skins, because they are unrigid or unflexible. And so
Mhm.
the well-seasoned individuals, they're so used to of the wine of yesterday, and they're
Yeah.
not wanting to try anything else. They, without even trying what's new, they keep saying this is better. Well, how do you know
And
this is better
yeah,
if you never tried the new?
and I understand that more now at 74 than I did when I was younger. Because after you've done some things and you've done it this way all your life and it worked for you, you don't want to switch up. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what being set in your ways is. Uh, there are always a better way, but when we have seen one way work for us, that's the only way I want to do it. And that limits you. That makes you a dinosaur. You will become outdated quickly because of not wanting to do things differently.
Exactly. Exactly. Let me. I have a question for you guys, and it's basically I want everyone to hear this. Now, of course, y'all mentioned y'all in y'all 70s. Y'all been in ministry as long as I've been alive, uh,
53
and
years.
I'll be 55 this
53.
month. But um, do y'all feel like y'all to made the decision to give up the brick and mortar, or do y'all feel like y'all was pretty much kind of pushed into that direction?
Both.
Both.
Uh-huh. When we were in the brick and mortar, our fellowship had gotten down to maybe 50 people regularly. And that varied depending on the weather and all of this stuff because they were aging. Um, we would have visitors who were younger because they liked the message. But when the pandemic hit, uh, and everybody couldn't come together, we kept our building for maybe 7 months. And during that time, we conversed with our congregation via Zoom several times about the fact that we knew we were not going to be able to continue to hold that space without having services. We sent letters and communicated with the landlords to adjust the payments, which they did for 3 or 4 months. And then after, when they thought the pandemic was ending, because the one in charge up in the White House said that it was going to be over, they went right back to a full payment and were not very flexible. And we knew because our congregation wasn't able to give a lot of money, it was either the rent or our housing allowance. It was the rent or our housing allowance. That's what it had come to. And while we were having services, of course, we were getting both. But when no one could come together, everything kind of diminished. And so we knew if we continued holding that building, that we would eventually not be able to get a housing allowance.
Exactly.
That, for us, was the deciding factor, not just because we wanted a housing allowance, but we had just gone through several years back holding on to a $1.2 million building, losing all of our retirement for forfeiting our salary, and then just losing all of it. And we decided we were not going to do that again in trying to save a building. So we decided with the congregation, we decided it's time we'll give them 2 more months, and if they don't work, we won't sign a new lease, and we'll just ask to get out of our present lease, and that's it. So that's what we did. Sold everything off, put what we couldn't sell into storage, and we went live online.
And this last time, after moving 3 times, I guess, we had to end up selling and letting go of everything.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
But one thing I deal with is
It was a hard adjustment for him,
and still is.
and still is. He prefers in person. He prefers in person.
And there was a reason why I asked that question. Again, because y'all are considered seasoned, and I've always told y'all always, as long as I've known you guys have always been on the cutting edge. And again, for the length of time that y'all been in ministry, and even at this stage in y'all life, and I shared with y'all before we got on the broadcast that I've been sharing from this series, making seasonal adjustments. I wanted people to hear that because from the choice that y'all made, and like you said, it came both ways. Y'all made a decision, and at the
Mhm.
same time, you probably was kind of pushed a little bit into that direction as well. But
Mhm.
again, we have to remember we said we serve a Father that is the author and the finisher.
Mhm.
All right.
Mhm.
So the whole script has already been written, the whole story has already been told, and we're just living it out. Uh,
Yeah.
and so, again, I wanted especially leaders to hear that, because there are a lot of leaders right now that's trying to hold on
Mhm.
to what was.
Mhm.
And I'm talking about especially with brick and mortar. They are trying to hold on because I find it very odd, even in our situation at Bowl, we we was going into the process of purchasing the building in January of 2020, and then the
Mhm.
pandemic hit in March. And
Mhm.
so and y'all been in our ministry, a thriving,
Yeah.
very aggressive
Mhm.
community and so forth. And then all of a sudden, we kept the building for 2 years
Mhm.
in the midst of the pandemic, paying the lease and never ever going back really to come together corporately. But we have expanded so much to the point that we don't even just say Bowl Ministries International, we say to the Bowl Nation, because we
Yeah.
have people that's from very state cities that I did not know that was connected to the broadcast. But I found it very odd that the moment we decided to go back into the church, which would have been April the 3rd of this year, that right before that, the owners decided to sell the building.
Mhm. Mhm.
Literally, and I was not going to pay that amount that was listed, even though they wanted to work something out
Yeah.
for me. But even if we don't understand what's happening, because we often want to say someone has failed if they are
Yeah.
lost a building or whatever, and I don't see it as a failure because I just drove by there recently, matter of fact, yesterday, and saw some stuff that was going on that I can truly say we escaped a headache if we would have kept that building.
Mhm. Mhm.
Literally, when we know that the people were not giving aggressively as they used to give.
Yeah.
So I say that because there is a mindset, especially when it comes to ministry, where we want to classify people failing, or this one is being successful, this one their run is, and it's not. We're in a transitional period in our lives where one season is ending and another one is beginning.
Mhm.
And so we need to become like, the sons of Issachar, which is mentioned in First Corinthians Chronicles
And
chapter.
they knew the times.
Yep, they had the ability to discern the times and to tell the people what they ought to do. In essence, how they are to adjust and to adapt to that seasonal change in their lives. And so I was and I talk about y'all quite often. I am very impressed by the decision that you guys made at a stage in your lives. And I'm seeing how y'all are having a greater impact, a greater sphere of influence that
Mhm.
would never have happened if those things that transpired didn't kind
True.
of usher y'all into this mode
True.
of ministry.
And I want to mention this. It was an adjustment, more so for him than me. I've never been uh, in love with the brick and mortar.
Mhm.
I've always cared for people, but I never cared for the in person church setting. Um,
Mhm.
so it didn't phase me the way that it did with him because of his, I say, because of his calling and how personable he is. Uh, and I wanted to mention this as well, that when it came time to make a choice, I'm in my prayer time, not really verbally, I presented it to the Lord. Okay, what should we do? And I left it at that. We always present it, but we never wait to get it
Mhm.
from God. I've learned a long time ago that if God doesn't speak and tell you how and when and where and all of that, then he's saying just move forward. And providence is directing you.
I need to
Providence
hear
is
that.
the great provider is directing you, and not directing you from outside of you, but actually in your feet directing you. And that's what you were talking about. You're not going to have to try to find one, because the one that's for you, it's gonna be there calling you when it's time. And so we've always lived that way. We've never been what he called who never had lead poisoning, wanted to be led by
Man,
God.
right.
We never had lead poisoning.
Mhm.
And so we've always been open to God's communication to us, no matter how it comes, but we've never waited for that communication before we made a decision.
Mhm.
And we made our decisions, calculated decisions,
And I,
knowing what we were doing.
and I want to thank you for what you just said, because that just ministered to me when you made a statement concerning you. We all present, okay, God, what do we do now? We're going to go to prayer. We're going to ask the question, what do we do now? Again, because we want our steps to be ordered by Him. But if we don't get an answer, you just
Providence.
made a profound statement dealing with providence. You just move forward,
Yes.
and I needed to hear that.
Yes.
I'm going to say something that's different
Okay.
than what we've heard. I don't know why every time I get on here,
Don't worry about
it's
that.
just it's like
It's
I
okay.
can't. I'm talking back.
Yeah. His hearing starts acting up when he starts to talk to us.
I lost my train of thought, but anyway,
Something that we didn't say.
okay,
That's going to be a little different.
yeah,
Mhm.
I don't want to hear from God anymore like I used to.
Yeah.
I don't want the directions that I used to seek after like I used to. I'll never, from this point on, I will never talk to God like He's not myself.
Yes.
It's good.
Yes.
I'll never look for Him because He has revealed to me where He is.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, every man on the earth,
Mhm.
this has been done
Yeah.
like my hearing and my walking up steps.
Mhm.
Infirmities are an asset to us and not a liability.
Yes.
It's good.
Buzz, I want you to hear that. I want you to hear that.
Mhm.
If he was sick and we knew it not, and then it was revealed to us that he was everyone that has an infirmity, we often jump ahead of the cart and wanting God to heal something.
Yeah.
When in our infinite identity, there's nothing wrong with us.
Not only that, but in the infirmity, God is present. And when you're in the infirmity, sometimes more than when you're not.
Let me tell you something. I went to a man ministry in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I'm gonna call his name. Maybe it could be anybody. His last name was Young, and his first name was Charles. I heard about him. I went down there. I noticed all these bottles and things was on the side of the wall of the church building that I was, or the building I was in. But there was another lady named Joyce Steele was preaching that night, evangelist. She was kind of like him. But what I found out was that he had everybody in his church to bring jugs, jars, and water in glasses and containers. He prayed over them, touched them, changed water into gas,
Uh-oh.
and they poured it in their car.
Uh-oh. Somebody gonna try that
and
now.
kept going. And that's the way they drove their car. Now that really did that. I was right there in the
You saw
store.
it. You saw
I
it.
saw the containers that he was using.
Did you see the people that had the gas?
If they were there, and I didn't hear them say nothing about it, but I heard about it. I went down there to see, and there was another lady preaching in his place. I don't know whether he's still living now or not. But these are the mystical things that I investigated into, and I'm like the Hobbit on that what the movie's
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings Hobbit.
Mhm.
They were on an adventure to get back the gold that was taken, but
Mhm.
the fever got on their leader. Let me tell you something. There is and will never be a moment in this universe that you and I we are seeing the earth make a deliberate change. The
Mhm.
earth is puking up
Yes, yes.
Regurgitate.
water, storms, and everything.
Yeah, yeah, it
Mhm.
is. It is.
Our present government is puking up everything on the air. And one man is the subject of all of it, but
Mhm,
he's a symbol of the earth puking
mhm.
up junk.
Yep,
Mhm.
yep.
He's also a sign to the world.
Mm.
And Lord's, it was revealed to me that this is what Spirit said to me, when I am ready for myself in Him
To be removed.
to be removed, they will lock his golden shamrock up, his butt up. Until then, they won't. But if it is done tomorrow or today, it's because God locked him up.
Exactly.
And God is going to use
Everything.
the jail cells to get to this man one way or the other if it ain't nothing but his mind going crazy. And it's already is. But be not dismayed about what's going on in our government,
Right.
but look at it. I
Mhm.
looked at this stuff online with these earthquakes and these avalanches
Mudslides
and the sides of
floods.
mountains of falling apart and water coming up out of strange places.
Mhm.
Now, parallel, let's bounce off of it. They are signs that on the inside of our pure self, in
Mhm.
comparison to the ego, your eternal God self is coming forward and he's pushing this stuff out of the earthly body, our physical body,
Yeah.
conditions,
Yeah.
sickness, disease,
Yeah.
and infirmities is being pushed to the surface because the pure self
Everything's being corrected.
is being adjusted to the
Yes.
presence of God that is doing some changes in the earth that has to be like it is. And our physical body is the same earth. People don't know, but when Noah built the ark, the measurements that Noah used to build the ark, when I investigated into the mystical side of that boat, the cubit and the feet of that thing was the size and the dimension of
Of
the human
man.
body
Of man.
of
Mhm.
man.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it. I read it.
You studied it.
I studied it.
Yeah.
I didn't study one time, but I studied all archaeology that I could because I want to find evidence that God was moving in the physical world, and He is. One thing He did say to me is that Jesus' physical body was not eternal
Exactly.
until
Yeah.
it died and came back with the eternal essence, also
Yeah. So that
working through His body.
tells me that everything, and in their scriptures it said it must be tried by fire.
It's going to
And
die
so everything has to go through the trial
and come back.
of whether or not it is integrous
He said a new
and,
earth and a new
and
heaven.
permanent.
Inside.
If it's not integrous and permanent,
Mhm.
it won't survive
That's
the
right.
trial.
That's right.
Mhm. And
So
and
only that that's permanent will come out on the other side.
exactly. And when Dad was talking, I heard this loud and clear that the earth has held her fruit from
Oh,
us
oh.
because we have been unkind to her.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mhm.
exactly what I heard. So the earth is in travail because it's been waiting for eons of time for the manifestation of the sons
The
of God.
sons of
And
God.
so until we come forth in the reality of who we really are,
Mhm.
the earth would never give us fruit. And so I thought about when Elijah had told Ahab that it was not going to rain for 3 years and 6 months. And then James picked it up when he talked about the effectual fervent prayer of the righteous availeth much. It said it's like the earth that the heavens gave rain and the earth bear its fruits once again.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I've heard that we've been unkind to planet Earth, and she was
Yeah.
holding her fruit from us.
Let me tell you some things I saw. The earth is pregnant.
Yes.
And
I
so
ha-
are we.
and it's giving birth. I saw a lady on television. I glanced at on YouTube. Was doing pole dancing with a pregnant belly.
What?
She was big as Paul Bunyan, and her bed was, and she was going around. And
Now, what does that have to do with anything?
well, hold on. The earth is
On a pole?
yeah.
Now
The
I'm getting this funny image.
center of the earth axis is like that pole, and the earth is shaking on that.
Yeah.
It is pregnant with coming forth of renovations. It's renovation
It's
time.
renovating, yes.
I found out that some lakes that are now didn't used to be, they formed themselves because the axis of the earth turned and created new water places.
Yeah.
Look at the Lake Mead.
Yeah, like me. Yeah.
Lake Mead, it's drying up, and there's other lakes that are drying up, and it's
What
places.
happened in Yellowstone? What happened in
Yellowstone, Purple Stone, Green Stone,
Yeah.
the Flint stones, all them stones. Every every last one of the stones in the earth is in a mode of hearing God. Cornerstone.
There you go.
Long John Silver and Long Ranger. And all them boys.
My mom made a statement about the earth is correcting itself, and Dad, you even made a statement to that. But there's a movie out, and I think I shared this with y'all before. It's called The Core.
Yeah,
it's a scientific movie where all these things started happening on the surface of the earth that was unexplainable, and they discovered that the core of the earth had stopped moving.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
And so they had to make this exploration and build a ship to go down to the earth core and ignite it again. Well, it may be a scientific movie, but it has some symbolism to what is happening right now. Think about all the various viruses that are coming forth now, all the different weather catastrophes, all that's happening with government. Everything you could possibly think of is actually happening right now. And so it is the earth itself correcting itself because it's been out of alignment, because we have not been who God is actually as us.
Yes, and and I remember Eckhart Tolle said this years ago. I heard him say this, that when God is dealing with the country, he deals with it as if it's a being. So all the systems will begin to all of the ego systems will be dismantled. And a lot of what we are seeing is in our government and all of the different systems that we have in our country, a lot of them have been egotistical in their base. The base of it is egotistical, and they will be dismantled. Someone will be dismantled, and that's just the way it's going to be.
I was in the council chamber, and I didn't finish what was supposed to have been shown by sight in the spirit. I was made to, by knowledge, know information. Jesus calls every sage in the spirit world and those that are on earth into the council chamber.
It's called the circle of sages.
The circle of sages. He's calling them. And the addendum on this was that I saw the artifacts or the collections of God, such as the trees that they come in. If you say nature, the fruits of the land. I saw oceans. I saw fires of God. I saw the gold of the earth. Every artifact that was on this side that looked like it was just an object was spirit beings. They were his collections. And he talked to them. The nature of trees, the fruits, the vegetables, all these things. They are people. They are beings.
They're beings.
Each one of these things,
exactly.
They are like beings. And see, when you wake up to That's why I tell you guys, if you are really awake to your true identity, you're gonna be awake. You are waking up to us. When you wake up, you take the Course in Miracles and the Bible and any other book, and you'll be able to shake the good. You'll be able to shake the truth out of it, because your eternal spirit is what cannot be seen in the books and the physical things. Your relationship as being eternal in everything in the earth and the universe is inside of us, and it communicates on the level of pure spirit. I'm trying to find words to say it.
Well, don't worry about it.
Intuition.
Look, if we say God is eternal, there is no finite being that can say God is eternal, because in order to see what is eternal,
You have to be.
It has to be eternal.
Exactly.
There it is.
Exactly.
So when we say anything like that about God, it's God itself talking about itself.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I never walk again without God walking in me.
Yes.
I never said again until God. I not just, and that does not mean that there ain't nothing going on with my body and my mind.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because a while back, about a mile back, while y'all were talking, I had this aha that we are it, like Chris said when he said, accept who you are, God in the flesh. Mm-hmm. The minute I hear that, my mind hears that. The mind says, well, if I'm all that, why can't I change this and change this and change that? And I understood, I had an aha, that even the God power is under a governor. Mm-hmm. And it's like when you have the school buses and they got those governors on it. Mm-hmm. The bus has the potential
to go faster.
But that governor is going to keep them at a certain limit.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what's happening with our God power. It's under a governor.
Okay.
He can't go against what he has already written.
Cannot go against it.
Mm-hmm.
The power.
Let me see what Linda said. She said, there is a PBS show called The Green Planet that shows clearly plants have consciousness.
Yeah.
And so does water.
And
water.
they meet in the council room. I had a chance to get started into seeing some of them, even the pillar fire and the night and the all of the artifacts that we see in the scripture and other. Jesus has a collection room and a fellowship room with every sage, every religious leader, whether in the body or not. He has a conference room where he meets with every last one of them, and he has to meet with all of them before they come to earth.
Yes. Yes. Well, you know, we're out of time, young men and young ladies. We're out of time, and we've been here a little bit over, we're about 11 minutes over. We're good. But we thank you for tuning in to us. We had a good conversation today. Interesting. Interesting. Yes. We will do it again, and we're glad you came in to join us, and we are hoping that you got something out of what we were sharing. Thank you guys for coming in, Linda, Buzz, and Lady Gwen, and Oliver. Hey, Ollie,
Pamela,
and all of you guys. We just thank you for coming in, Sister
Herself.
Sharon.
Miss Essie is in good hands with her angel standing there. There's two of them, two on one side of the bed with her and one on the other. There's three of them there beside her, Sharon, and the presence of the Lord is really strong in that room.
Yeah, it is.
It's all around you. The time that we had with Miss Essie and what we've learned from her has been worth more its weight in gold.
I'll never forget what Mama Essie said one Sunday. We were sitting and he had the audacity to ask people, why do you come to church?
I did.
And Miss Essie said, habit.
You heard what you said.
And that's true. That
And
is
it's
true.
true. It's
That's
true.
true.
It was nothing but habit.
The only thing I deal with now, Bishop, is, and you guys hear me, because of the hearing and the sciatic difficulty that this body is going through. I don't feel as confident now in this body, but I am in my pure self. I don't have the unction or desire to do a whole lot of moving. I walk in the morning half the steps. When I get back, I'm ready to go to bed or sit down. I don't have a desire really to be around people that much, but I see them. They come by the come with my garage door open and I'm sewing. They stop in their car and just stop and roll the window down and talk to me from my sewing machine. And some of them come by and get out and come in. I just want to know what you're doing. I said, well, I'm just making things,
And now that the weather's nicer,
Yeah.
you can leave the door open. Yeah.
But I have met some of the most amazing people, and God put us on this block. He put us in this house, and He is putting things of resources in you guys' hands out there now to help us keep this place going. And as you do it, the blessings returns unto you. Yeah. And one of the biggest blessings that we've ever had here online is knowing and meeting you people out there.
Yeah. And just in case you want to, I'll put it up here so you can. All right. We love you guys. We'll see you again on what's the day? Thursday. We'll see you Sunday.
Sunday morning.
Yeah, I had to catch my remember
morning
what day it is.
Sunday morning at 10 at 10 Sunday morning.
Sunday morning at 10, Cornerstone, and 11 for gold.
Yep, 11 for gold.
Yay.
Okay.
And so we love you. We'll see you next time.
Go eat your bowl of cereal and get bolder.